I feel like most people don't even realize how tiny our planet really is. And I do all the time because we make these giant aquariums. And when you put fish in them, they just look so small. Like this guy. How tiny is that? But also, they're just so freaking cool. So today, I want to talk about making miniature aquatic life. Some people might call it nanotanks, but personally, I think it's better called miniatures. They're not always small aquariums. I think it's more about the idea of being able to recreate a whole world in just a few gallons, and it's just amazing to me. And so in this video, I want to share with you why I think planted aquariums are the ultimate hobby, and some of the ways that you can dive in if you're new to it. For those of you who aren't aware, term planted aquarium, or sometimes scape, is actually kind of a broad term for the hobby of aquascaping. That S, the one where people take what would normally be considered fish tanks and turn them into works of art. People have been doing this since the 60s, and while at first it was pretty rudimentary, nowadays there are entire companies dedicated to selling products specifically for planted aquariums. There's probably no other hobby that matches planted aquariums in terms of combination of creativity and science. To be good at planted aquariums, you need to know about botanicals, interior design, aquatic biology, geology, chemistry. I could go on. And all of those things come together to allow you to build these unique worlds, which honestly, I find pretty mind-blowing. Like, let's say that you're looking at this aquarium. Oh, it looks beautiful, right? There's a lot going on there. It looks lush. It looks like it has a lot of life. But like if you were to take out just one of those elements, it doesn't look as good. Like if it wasn't curved, it just doesn't look as immersive. If the wood wasn't there, it doesn't look as natural. And then, if you didn't have the light shining through the top, it just wouldn't pop. All of those things come together to make this one piece of art, and I just find that kind of stuff really interesting. And another thing that makes planted aquariums so fascinating to me is that every single one is unique.
Oh no.
Two planted aquariums are exactly alike. I mean, you could have the same size tank, the same substrate, the same plants, the same everything, but you arrange them differently, and suddenly you have something completely different. And because each aquarium is a little world unto itself, there's this whole community of people who are dedicated to building their own little worlds. There's very little crossover with other areas of the aquarium hobby, especially compared to like reef tanks, which tend to be pretty uniform in their design. But with planted aquariums, everyone's is different. And it's pretty cool to see that kind of pride in each person's individual setup. Now, there are a lot of ways to get involved with planted aquariums. And while I personally love watching videos about the hobby, I found that following along with someone else is the best way to learn. I'm talking about things like trimming your plants or adding fertilizer or whatever. It's just best learned by doing. And so with that in mind, here are some ideas for you to try out. First off, you could start a planted aquarium journal. This is something I did before I started making YouTube videos, and it's something I still do to this day. I have several journals filled with drawings and notes about planted aquariums, and I find it's a great way to learn. For example, I remember drawing and redrawing this particular scape dozens of times before I finally built it in real life. And just by drawing and redrawing it over and over again, it really helped me figure out what I liked about it and how to build it. Plus, drawing helps you to remember things. I remember this tank vividly to this day, and I think part of it is because I drew it so many times. Also, you can track your progress and learn from your mistakes.
Oh.
And that's really important in planted aquariums because there are so many variables. When you're first starting out, it's really hard to know what's working and what isn't. So writing it down helps a ton. Next, you could experiment with growing aquatic plants in a container. Now, you don't necessarily need a tank to start planted aquariums. You could start with just plants. A lot of people grow their plants in containers until they're ready to add fish. And there's a lot of reasons for this. First off, it's cheaper. Having a tank lying around is nice because you can just add water and get right to work, but you don't need one. Secondly, it's easier to control the environment for plants. You can use pots and soil and fertilizers, and all that stuff is easier to dial in than water parameters. And finally, once you get the plants established, it's actually easier to move them into a tank than it is to add fish to a tank full of plants. Fish tend to be more sensitive to changes in their environment. Plants are usually fine. So if you wanted to learn about planted aquariums without having to worry about fish, this is a great way to start. Just make sure that you use a container that's tall enough. Plants grow tall and they need room to spread out. Another fun project is to make a temporary planted aquarium. You could do this with a milk carton or a Tupperware or a vase or whatever you have lying around. In fact, when I was first starting out, I used a milk carton. It was clear and it had a lid and it was free. All you have to do is drill some holes, add a filter, maybe an air pump, and then you're good to go. The reason I recommend this is because it lets you try out things that you might not want to commit to long term. Maybe you like the idea of a Dutch-style aquarium, but you're not sure you want to keep up with it. Or maybe you want to play around with hardscape materials. This is a great way to do that and not have to make a long-term commitment. Also, it's a great way to learn how to keep plants alive. And speaking of learning how to keep plants alive, I actually made a whole video about that. So if you're interested, I will link that below. Finally, if you already have a tank, you could try converting it into a planted aquarium. This is the route that I took, and it's how I got started in the hobby. And personally, I think it is a great way to start because you can take your existing setup and slowly modify it to make it more planted. So for example, you could start by just adding some easy plants and then work from there. Or maybe you'd rather start by adding a bunch of hardscape and then fill in the gaps with plants later. Either way, you can start small and slowly add more plants until you have the level of plant coverage that you desire. I don't know about you guys, but I love looking at photos of planted aquariums, especially macro shots of plants. I don't know what it is. I just find them so relaxing to look at. And recently I asked my viewers for their favorite planted aquariums, and you guys delivered. So I just want to say thank you to everyone who submitted photos. There were so many amazing aquariums and it was hard to choose, but I picked out a few of my favorites to share with you. So enjoy. One thing I notice about planted aquariums is that they seem to be either very large or very small. And this is especially true for the ones that people submit to me. Like, these are all great aquariums, but they're all either huge or tiny. So I actually want to encourage anyone who's working on a mid-size aquarium to please send me some photos because I haven't seen any of those yet. And yeah, I just think planted aquariums are awesome. I think there's so much more than just a pet or just a decoration. They're almost like a piece of art. And that's something that I think a lot of people underestimate. These things are pieces of art, and that's something that should be enjoyed, appreciated. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please hit that thumbs up button. As always, I want to give a special thanks to my supporters. You guys help me make the best content that I possibly can, and I really appreciate it. So thank you. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.